It has elsewhere been told of the world of the Refugium, of the fashion of its lands and its waters, and of the kindreds and cultures of humanity that dwell therein. But the Refugium is an ancient world, old far beyond the scope of imagination to conceive or of time to measure, and within its boundaries have passed immemorial eons so remote as to leave no remnant and to pass forever out of all knowledge. But there is one truth that echoes down through the unfathomable gulfs of time from the Paleogean ages before the Refugium was created, a truth that shapes the fate of all things. For within the Refugium, all matter, energy, life, thought, and all else besides has its uttermost source in 7 fundamental metaphysical essences that underlie reality, and all things are woven from a confluence of their being. But they do not merely form the substance of the world, for each of the essences are in possession of their own sentience and will, though of a sort wholly beyond the comprehension of humans. And as they permeate all things, so it is that the Refugium is alive with their thought, and that their wills are embodied in the world itself. But their presence is most apparent in the minds of living things, humans being chief among them. For as the human psyche, in the manner of all else, arises from a union of the 7, so the 7 may subtly influence human cognition through phantom thoughts and visions and unsought promptings of intuition. By such means, the essences have silently moulded much of human history to their purposes, and their fleeting imprints upon the hearts of humanity surface at times in their religions and ideologies. Whilst all 7 exist in at least some measure in every human, they do not all contribute an equal part, and most humans will have a ruling essence to which they are more closely aligned than any other, which will therefore occupy the greatest share of their thought. The stronger this affinity, the greater the ease and clarity with which the essence may impart its will to the individual, such that they become more attuned to those aspects of the world over which the essence has purview. And should the essence achieve sufficient dominion of their thought, the individual may experience an awakening, becoming enlightened to the truth of the essences by knowledge manifested directly to their mind. These humans, of which are born only a scarce few in any generation, are the chief instruments of the essence's will, and shall here be termed acolytes. Yet even by these acolytes, the boundless nature of the essences cannot be fully conceived, but merely interpreted in a manner that humans can understand, from which come their manifold depictions throughout history. Some say they look down on the world from the heavens above as the sun and moons. Some say their true forms lie dormant or imprisoned in a great void that lies beneath the Refugium, and some say they dwell within the Nightlands and safeguard the Refugium from the terrors that lurk amid the darkness. Through all the ages of humanity, each of the 7 have accumulated names and epithets beyond count, and given here are those that prevailed in the places of their greatest reverence and that have endured the longest in memory. But to an acolyte is not only given the secrets of the existence and will of their ruling essence, but also control, at least in some small degree, over the aspects of the world that derive from that essence, to perform feats that most would call magic. Each essence bestows unique abilities to its acolytes in accordance with the facets of the world that are formed from it, but by the acolytes of all 7 is shared the gift of immortality, wherein they are sustained by the strength of the essence within them, remaining alive for as long as the essence has use for them, and no longer weathered by old age, though they may still be slain and succumb to injury and illness after the manner of common mortals. But an acolyte must always know that they are not the master of the magic they wield, but merely a conduit through which their ruling essence may exert its will upon the world. Should an acolyte endeavour to wield the power of the essence for a purpose that is against its will or nature, then their magic will simply fail them and come to naught, or worse yet, overwhelm or destroy them as the essence exacts its vengeance. Through long years of training and meditation, an acolyte may align themselves more perfectly to their ruling essence and attain greater power, so that the oldest and most proficient among them are renowned as nigh unto demigods, and their deeds are sung of in legends the world over. But no matter the skill or power an acolyte achieves, the human body is woven of a delicate harmony of all 7 essences, and to cause one to eclipse the others will upset this balance, from which follows a progression of mental and physical disturbances known among the acolytes as the affliction, the course of which will differ with respect to which essence is dominant. Thus, an acolyte must be wary of drawing too heavily on their power, and must never forget or forsake their humanity, lest the essence consume them and bring them to their ruin. Since the dawn of civilization, the acolytes of each essence have been drawn together and assembled as covens, cabals, and orders, uniting to enact the will of their ruling essence, such that each of the 7 has a body of followers upholding its own precepts and traditions. At a time, some of the essences may have hundreds under their service, while others have but a scarce few, in accordance with their power and prevalence in human thought as it waxes and wanes through time. Many events throughout human history have been engineered by the acolytes, whether subtly or overtly, in furtherance of that part of their essence's agenda that has been revealed to them, though to what ultimate end, not even the greatest among them can tell. As the nature of the essences is far beyond the ability of the human mind to grasp, neither can it be adequately expressed in language, and what is told of them here will fall far short of their true being. Arn is the essence of stasis, apathy, stagnation, and inertia. Although Arn is held by many to be among the greatest of the 7 in power and ubiquity, it is by far the most passive among them. Arn shows scarce concern for the other essences, and seldom involves itself in mortal affairs, for which reason nearly all of the old legends speak of it as sleeping or dormant. It is written on the soapstone tablets of Achalozan that the rumour of Arn's movement is as an earthquake, and that its strength runs through the veins of the world down to the very pillars of its foundation. The only matter against which it is certain that Arn will bring forth its full might is the onset of change, no matter its medium or manifestation. With the meagre portion of its power that it invests into its servants, Arn directs all of its efforts into preserving the world in a state of tranquil equilibrium, and it abhors above all else the march of time and the occasional disruptions of uniformity that punctuate history. For this reason there exists an uneasy truce between Arn and the other essences, as it is inherent to its nature that Arn shall never strike the first blow against them, yet the others must always show a measure of prudence in their operations, lest they too brashly upset the balance of the world and rouse Arn from its torpor. Though Arn puts little thought to such an end, its acolytes are among the most numerous of any of the 7. Arn speaks most readily to those who seek to withdraw from the world, who care little for the plights of others, or who despair at the burdens and toils of mortal life. Found among all the cultures of the world, they gather in subterranean and megalithic sanctums so ancient that the identity of their builders has been lost to the mists of prehistory. There they keep a meditative watch on the world at large, only intervening to quash the overzealous work of the other essences. Spaces in which Arn accumulates in excess will be leached of their energy and dynamism. Fires smoulder, light dims, and colours ebb, yet physical aspects are made static and stable. An experienced acolyte can channel this power into spells of enervation and warding, to deplete moving objects of their momentum, to fashion intangible barriers through which movement is hindered, and to imbue items with surpassing durability to resist physical force and the ravages of time. More than those of any other essence, the acolytes of Arn are hardy of body, able to withstand injuries that would maim or kill a normal mortal, and have greater resistance to sickness and poison, and the most powerful among them are even known to regrow limbs that are cut from them. However, with these blessings comes a creeping weariness as the affliction of Arn takes hold. The acolytes' emotions begin to dull, the attachments and bonds to their mortal life fade and are forgotten, and they are steadily consumed by lethargy and a slowness of mind and body. Their movements become stiff and cumbersome, their flesh hardens like stone, and should the affliction progress to its culmination, the acolyte will become petrified as an effigy of their likeness, entombed by the very power that sustained them. Hlatikuulmak is the essence of wantonness, passion, ferocity, and tumult. The oldest texts tell of Hlatikuulmak as lying at the swirling heart of the tempest, in the flash of lightning that splits the sky, and at the seething core of the inferno. For Hlatikuulmak is an entity of ceaseless ardour, delighting in havoc and in turmoil, though not out of malevolence, but merely of careless revelry. It has no thought for the ruin that is wrought from its frenzying, for restraint and foresight are wholly foreign to its nature. To its service, Hlatikuulmak draws those who are stricken with recklessness, impulsiveness, and hedonism, who would obtain power and pleasure for themselves by depriving others of their due, and who act on the whims of a moment without thought for the consequences that may later befall them. By this nature, the acolytes of Hlatikuulmak make enemies of one another as often as they do with those of the other essences, vying with each other out of envy and greed for greater power. There exists very little internal organization among them, and most of their alliances are short-lived. The magic of Hlatikuulmak is highly unstable and volatile, and is difficult to wield even by its most adept practitioners, surging forth in violent, energetic paroxysms that injure or kill those who wield it flippantly. But those who achieve greater skill may unleash turbulent maelstroms of many twisting vortices, and bursts of lightning with the strength to bring solid rock to rubble, and writhing flames that consume metal and stone as though it were wood or flesh. Yet the acolyte shall find no contentment in this power, and their greed and lust leads them the swifter to Hlatikuulmak's affliction, by which they grow ever more wild and ravenous, alongside which the body steadily assumes a more monstrous aspect. Their muscles and bones are reshaped, and their flesh is reconstituted into horns, claws, and fangs, until the acolyte becomes as a near-mindless beast, tormented by unquenchable rage and anguish, such that it comes as a great mercy when their agony grows too great for their body to bear, and they are destroyed by the restless power that fills them. Nga'urithal is the essence of secrets, illusion, dreams, and madness. The oldest tales speak of Nga'urithal as sequestered in the secret and forgotten corners of the world that are unknown even to the other essences, in the hidden grottos and caverns in the fathomless depths of the ocean, and in the deepest pits at the roots of the Refugium that lie forever shrouded in darkness. It is said by its adherents that Nga'urithal knows all things that have or ever shall come to pass, and that it alone holds the secrets of what lies beyond the curtains of shadow at the edge of the world. The acolytes of the other essences are swift to dismiss these assertions as lies and delusions, and as contrivances by which Nga'urithal may ensnare its thralls and entrench itself within their hearts. Those who become acolytes of Nga'urithal are dominated by a fear of uncertainty and ignorance, despairing at the limits of perception by which the future remains unknown, and the cruel brevity of human life and the mysteries of what may come after. And in seeking to fill this void of knowledge, they heed Nga'urithal's whisperings and the omens it delivers to them in dreams. Seduced by these visions, they become blindly loyal to its teachings, and a disdain grows hot within them for those who doubt or spurn what has been revealed to them. Nga'urithal's acolytes are relatively few and widely scattered, but they are not hindered by their separation, as chief among the powers granted to them is that of the sharing and exchanging of thoughts with others, by which they may convene with each other in dreams while their bodies are separated by vast distances. Through similar arts of the mind, they are also able to bestow thoughts and illusions upon others to beguile or confound them, and to glimpse premonitions and insights concerning matters beyond the knowledge of all others. But as is said by the acolytes of the other essences, with every gift that Nga'urithal imparts is mingled a sliver of madness, and to heed its words without restraint will bring about contortions of perception and of thought. As an acolyte comes to place greater faith in the auspices of Nga'urithal over their own reason, so begins a slow descent into febrile, phantasmagoric insanity, racked by hallucinations as of waking hypnagogia, and an inability to distinguish reality from their own imaginings, until their mind becomes fractured beyond recall of its faculties and loses its command over the body, leaving the acolyte to meet their demise as a senseless, gibbering mockery of their former self. Imunrakhar is the essence of purity, effulgence, supremacy, and judgment. It is said to exist in all things of beauty and majesty, from the lofty heights of the heavens and the clouds that adorn them, to the rainbow-strewn cascades and shimmering pools that flow from the plateau of the sun, to the gleam of gold and jewels and all the other precious substances harvested from the deeps of the earth. In the mind of its followers, all things through which Imunrakhar spreads are hallowed and blessed, and the other essences, therefore, are merely stains upon the perfection of its rightful dominion, from which arises a natural hierarchy of worthiness by which all things are ordered. That Imunrakhar has appointed them to be its acolytes they take as proof of their inherent superiority over other humans, and are charged with preserving the beauty of the world in accordance with Imunrakhar's dogma. To this end they are granted powers of purification, consecration, and enhancement, to augment the mind and body beyond its normal limits, to heal hurts and cleanse sickness, and to replenish objects of vibrance long since marred or tarnished. Such power bestows upon the acolyte a preternatural degree of resplendence and grandeur, by which they may inspire awe or terror in those that behold them by the sheer force of their presence. But as the affliction takes hold, this power is betrayed by a glow of golden fire in their eyes and blood, and in the peculiar manner in which they interact with light and shadow. In time, the imperfections of the world weigh heavy in their heart, and they bear ever more disgust for all things but themselves. And as they forsake the world about them, their flesh is wreathed in patterns of dancing light, and they are engulfed in a prismatic aurora, until at last their spirit consumes their body, and they are dissipated into ether. Tsenkaras is the essence of control, domination, regularity, and tyranny. It is the force of order and congruity by which the world is structured, from the delicate periodicity of crystal to the unyielding strength of iron and steel. The designs of Tsenkaras span the whole breadth of the world, and it is said that all things have a part to play in its schemes. For in the philosophy of Tsenkaras, just as the soul is a contrivance of the machinery of the body, so too does the world survive and flourish by the correct and precise operation of its components, and there is no greater evil than the disruption or defiance of this design, which must therefore be met with either rectification or destruction. The acolytes of Tsenkaras are numerous and strictly regimented, naming themselves guardians of order and civilization. They are rigid and unshakable in their persuasions, placing great value on discipline and obedience, and are ruthlessly efficient in all their doings, being utterly without mercy in bringing justice to those who defy them. Through the magic of Tsenkaras they may dominate the minds of others, to compel a subject to obey commands without question, to bind thought and movement to their will, and to instill even inanimate matter with instruction, such that doors may only open by their hand, and blades may be wielded only by a chosen master. But in taking away the will of others, they bring the same fate upon themselves, for the affliction of Tsenkaras erodes the acolyte's spirit, turning freedom of thought to blind subservience, and bleeding them of their identity. Their flesh becomes as firm and ductile as iron, and is reforged into shapes that more perfectly suit the purpose that Tsenkaras would have for them, until they become little more than thoughtless automata, forever enslaved to the mandates of their master. Mohayzu is the essence of chaos, dissonance, aberration, and anarchy. It is known to many as the living heart of the wilderness itself, and as the mother of the monsters that infest the dark lands at the farthest corners of the world. It is one with this depiction that Mohayzu comes to its fullest might in regions untouched by humanity, and that its power wanes in regions that fall under any regime of order or rule. For above all else, Mohayzu abhors law and authority, and seeks ever to unravel them wherever it spreads. By this reason, Mohayzu and Tsenkaras utterly despise one another, theirs being the fiercest and most bitter rivalry among the seven, each expending much of their power to subdue the other. Alone of the essences, Mohayzu's acolytes never come to one another's counsel, and form no alliances or associations in the pursuit of their goals. Bereft of any unity among its followers, Mohayzu instead takes its victims in isolation. It seeps into the thought of those who loathe compliance and conformity, who hold no bonds of loyalty or lordship, and within them it kindles a desire to rebel. As Mohayzu's grip tightens, they come to perceive rule as restraint and structure as captivity, and grapple with impulses as of a will that is not wholly their own, until at last they become naught but an empty vessel of splintered thought, a puppet through which Mohayzu might wreak its pandemonium. Where an acolyte of Mohayzu lingers, living things about them are tainted with wildness. Forests grow thick with vines, structures are enmeshed in webs of ivy and thorns, and beasts become savage and feral. When directed by an acolyte's will, Mohayzu causes objects to defy their expected nature, to make bare earth and rock grow and spread after the manner of living tissue, to sculpt flesh, blood, and bone into forms of dread, and even to distort the paths of time and motion within their aura of disharmony. But as the tendrils of Mohayzu creep into the acolyte's mind, their body slowly rebels against its constraints, becoming marred by hideous deformities, budding forth new fingers, eyes, and limbs, twisting into an abomination of contorted flesh that, at the last, is torn apart by its own unwillingness to rule itself. Virastir is the essence of entropy, antipathy, decay, and death. Of all the essences, Virastir has the greatest reputation of power and fear, perhaps owing to its most enduring depiction as the spirit of death itself. And as the spectre of mortality ever haunts humanity, so Virastir appears in the legends of every culture across all the ages of the world. Virastir is an entity utterly bereft of compassion or pity, to which the world and all beings within are but accretions of matter, and momentary flickers of life and thought that survive only by propagating faster than Virastir can destroy them. Though its hatred towards the other essences is immeasurable, Virastir's greatest foe is Arn, for Arn is its closest rival in might, and seeks to preserve that which Virastir would bring to ruin. Those who serve Virastir allow their empathy to be overtaken by malignity, becoming consumed by vengeance, contempt, or cruelty. Through all the ages of humanity, the acolytes of Virastir have been the most numerous of any of the seven, for all too readily can the human heart be swayed to malice and spite. Yet their strength is checked by the very power they wield, for Virastir is the most dangerous essence to harness, as it poisons and corrodes all that it touches and steadily decays the flesh of the wielder, so that many young acolytes are overwhelmed and slain soon after their awakening. Moreover, even should they survive, Virastir's contamination shall seep from them wherever they tread, and their passage shall be followed by blight and pestilence. In channeling this power, they can deprive solid matter of its strength and luster, so that stone and metal crumble to dust, food and water are fouled, and flesh festers and deteriorates. But even the mightiest acolytes cannot stave off Virastir's affliction for long. Their skin becomes withered and necrotic, stretched thin over brittle bones, their body turned to little more than a rotted husk reeking of putrefaction before decaying to dust. So swift and deadly is this affliction that it is said by some that, alone of the essences, Virastir does not grant immortality to its acolytes, for death has not the power to give life. But as has been told, the true nature and purposes of the essences are hidden even from their greatest servants, and what has here been said comes only from what little has been perceived of them by their followers. Yet the shadow of their influence is cast over every corner of the world, and about the enacting of their schemes the fate of all humanity shall be woven, through all of its realms and ages, unto its final days. To those from whom came in part the illustrations that have here been shown is owed much honour and gratitude, and an invitation is therefore given beneath to those else who would seek to join their council. And held highest in reverence and in praise are those who have lent their patronage and loyalty, such that this archive may yet long endure. Here is given thanks to all who have hearkened to this account.